All right. Pete Sousa in the studio, halftime. Bobcats against the Heat. It is a road game today, Brev. And one of the things we've talked about ad nauseum so far this year is the Bobcats and their road woes. Talk to us a little bit about the mentality. What happens to a team when you lose so many games in a row? Because early in the season, they were dropping a couple games and you figure it's a road loss. A team that can win 30% of their games on the road and win at home half the time or a little bit more can go to the playoffs. Does it become a mentality after you lose so many games on the road?
Yeah, the biggest thing that Coach Brown and the staff has to fight against is the, oh, well, here we go again mentality. And this team is good enough to understand that they need to stop the streak now and that they have the ability to stop the streak, and that's what their mentality has to be going into the game. They can't worry about how many in a row, the games that they've lost. We've only won one on the road this season. They have to take it as that next game, prepare as best as possible, go out and play it as it was their last game, and just get that monkey off their back. And then that confidence that they can win on the road again will start to flow.
And explain that, like the anatomy of that confidence. You know, you've been on teams that have gone on, long winning streaks after having long losing streaks. What happens when the ball starts to bounce your way, and how do you guys keep that going?
Well, the biggest thing is you just have – it's a feeling. It's nothing you can put your hand on. It is just something that when that feeling occurs, you can't stop it. It's just you feel like the basket is wide as it can be. Whatever that ball hits the floor, you feel like your team is going to get it. When it's not going well, it just seems like every call goes against you. So you want to have momentum, and that's all it is. You want to have that game to game. You want to have momentum within the game. So it's something that it is a mindset. It's just a feeling that your team has when things are going the right way.
Yeah, and speaking of things going the right way, at times for the Bobcats this year, they have gone the wrong way. And a lot of times you got guys like Gerald Wallace and Steven Jackson who give 150% every game. This year, some effort has been questioned by Coach Brown and by those two guys, the aforementioned Jackson and Wallace. What happens in a locker room when guys, for lack of a better term, get called out?
I think it's a positive, but it still depends on that player, how he reacts to that constructive criticism. You have leaders in your locker room, you have leaders on your team that have the ability to call people out and say it in the right way. If a number of people recognize that certain people aren't doing their job, then it's time for those guys to step up. And that's what Coach Brown, Steven Jackson, and Gerald Wallace had seen, and they felt it was their place to mention it. And now from there, it's that players, this their point now is to either change it or other changes have to happen, i.e. not playing or moving to another team.
Speaking of calling guys out off the court, harken back a couple years ago when you were a veteran leader in that locker room and I was a young PR guy coming up, and there was a guy named Adam Morrison who didn't keep his locker very clean, and he would eat in the family room or in the players' lounge and wouldn't clean up, and Brevin Knight would call him out, and the delivery was such where sometimes it was a little hardcore, but Adam would get it. You correct?
Well, you have listen. That is our home away from home, and there you have to have those people that are like father hens. We're not going to say mother hens because we're all men. Father hens. And that is just teaching people the ways of our game and the way things are going to be. And that sets a precedent for how the organization will go. For us, it started from Bernie. He let us know how it was going to be. And from there, he depended on me to make sure that amongst the players in the locker room, we stayed on top of it. And with Adam, it was a little bit more needing to stay on top.
Well, you saved him a lot of money because we were just talking earlier about Joe Sharp, the poor guy, former trainer, used to have to walk in there with a fine slip every day.
And I felt bad for Adam. He was, like I said, it was an understatement to say he was messy. I don't know what the next level of messy is. I guess we could have been on Clean Locker Room, the show that comes on TV. He would have won it for us. But Adam was a good guy. He just wasn't the cleanest person.
And I doubt he still is right now. Adam is Adam. Great guy, but Adam is Adam. And moving on to more locker room stuff, we've talked a lot about the addition of Steven Jackson and how it's made the Bobcats a much better team. What happens when a guy with experience on a playoff team comes into a locker room with a team that has never been to the playoffs?
Oh, it just boosts the confidence of everyone else because he came from a team that was a lower-tier team. The Warriors weren't winning, and then they worked themselves up to the point where they made it to the playoffs, won playoff series, beat the number one seed Mavericks that season. So he understands what it takes to get to that level. And so guys are more apt to listen to him. They know that he's going to play hard night in and night out. So they see the determination that he has to get back to that level. and hopefully it wears on everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing people don't know about Steven Jackson, or you look at him at face value, people will say, and he put it in his own term, to say he's the thug or whatever. Thing about Steven Jackson, he really wanted out of Golden State because the culture there was a losing culture. And like you said, they went to that playoff series, they won it, and then they just turned around and didn't show the commitment to winning.
Exactly.
And I think the hunger that he has, I mean, talk a little bit about that. When a guy in the locker room has such hunger, is it kind of like, contagious?
It is contagious, and it's the type of thing that the Bobcats needed. They needed some type of interjection of life, and that's what he was. He brings, like you said, his grit, determination, but he brings a playmaker that the Bobcats needed. You can relieve some of the pressure from Raymond, from DJ Augustine to have to make the plays every time. Steven Jackson can get a shot for himself, or he can get shots for others. So he's going to bring another dimension that the team didn't have. He brings size at that two-guard position that the team didn't have. So it was a great trade for the Bobcats, and I think it'll just be intriguing to watch how they grow for the rest of this season and going forward.
Yeah, the record is what it is right now, but one of the reasons that the Bobcats are doing better than they have in the past is because they're winning games early in the season. Talk a little bit about what it's like, and that's one thing Steven said. He said, guys, you need to win in January. You need to win in December prior to January, because after the All-Star break, you don't want to play catch-up.
Well, the one thing when I was playing, I try to let everybody understand is the games that we win and lose in November and December count as much as the games we win and lose in March and February. The best thing you can do is pile up as many victories as you can before the All-Star break, because after All-Star break, now the intensity picks up one more level. And so those games that you may have had a chance of winning now become that much harder to win. So if you have stocked up or banked up enough wins early in the year, those losses don't hurt you as much later. So you have to he's definitely right. You have to concentrate probably even more in the beginning of the year to stockpile wins to save yourself towards the end of the season.
We talk about saving yourself. We talk about saving energy. You and I talked a little bit earlier, about a week or two ago, about teams that are doing away with shoot-around, which has been kind of textbook in the NBA. Teams always shoot around. Talk a little bit about, what will happen to a team if they don't have shoot-around, or if they do, should they or should they not, just being a former player?
Well, the biggest thing for me is I think it depends on your team. It is a team decision. Yeah, I feel as though if you have veteran guys that understand what it takes to win, not just because you have years in the league makes you a good veteran. If you have people that understand what it's going to take for your team to win and they can pass that on to the rest of your team, shoot-arounds you don't need because you go over the practice before. If you have a young team, you need to have your hand on the team more often. You need to make sure guys are ready. Then shooting around is necessary. For me, for basketball players, we sleep during the day.
Yeah.
And so
people don't know that about you yet.
Exactly. So to be able to have the opportunity to sleep the entire day and then play at night, I feel a lot more energized than having to break up sleep in the middle of the day and then work on trying to get back to a nap.
Because some people are not nap people. I mean,
exactly, and we're going to be up late. The nature of playing, your body is still, the adrenaline is still flowing.
You play 4 quarters, you're excited. You got to wind down. That takes time.
Exactly. So you don't go to bed till 2, 3 o'clock. You don't want to have to get up at 10 o'clock to go to a meeting to worry about going to sleep again at 12 or 1. So it's still dependent on what team and what's the makeup of your team.
Last question, I'm going to let you out of here. After New Year's right now, what is Brevin Knight's New Year's resolution?
My New Year's resolution is to work out 3 times a week, play basketball 2 times a week, and watch the Bobcats get into the playoffs.
I like it. Brevin Knight, point guard, former point guard, current color analyst, wears a lot of hats. Thank you for wearing ours today.
Thank you for having me, Pete.